Recently, we heard that a bar owner in Staten Island was defying the coronavirus lockdown in New York, and police came and actually arrested the man. What was crazy about it is that this guy's on the boundary of the different orange zone and red zone or whatever. So only a block or two away, there are restaurants functioning completely as if there is no COVID. It's totally normal. You can go and sit down, eat inside. But this guy's bar shut down. Well, he said enough. People need to work. He said, we have nothing left to lose. We're on the verge of collapse. And he doesn't even know if he can save his bar at this point. So we opened it up, said free food and free drinks. Just donate if you can. And cops came in violation of the Constitution, the supreme law of this land, and arrested the man. They violated his constitutional right to peaceably assemble. And, as some would argue, the 14th Amendment to be equal under the law. Because just 2 blocks away, as I mentioned, people are living their lives like normal. Now, hundreds of people in Staten Island came out and protested. And it's not just this story that's getting a lot of attention. A man in Michigan opening his restaurant. He walks up. There's a news report going on where they're like, this restaurant is staying open. The guy walks up behind the camera. You can see it. It's crazy. Real time. And he says, are you talking about this? I'm the owner. People, you need to stand up and say no. The government printed trillions of dollars and they gave it all to special interest groups, to their donors, and to the massive multinational corporations. This is the largest transfer of wealth in U.S. history. And so long as this money is going to massive multinational corporations, it is being stripped away from the American people. Don't believe me? I am going to show you a statistic right now that is going to make you, well, let's just say drop a load in your pants right now. So I hope you're ready. What is happening with everything we are seeing is that small businesses, the businesses that are the lifeblood of this country, the money that circulates in our communities and makes sure that we survive, is being extracted. And it is going to the likes of Amazon, big multinational corporations. Many of these companies hire foreign workers, not American citizens. Our wealth is being extracted not just from us to the wealthy, but from us to foreign countries. Dylan Ratigan brought it up. Remember Dylan Ratigan, MSNBC? I believe it was like 2012 or 2013 when he said this country is being extracted in many ways, but he also mentioned through trade. It's happening now and it's being accelerated. It's almost as if they are angry that Donald Trump bolstered the U.S. economy to the extent that he did, and they're trying now to beat the U.S. back down and give our money away. You ready for the stat that is going to make your jaw drop? I hope y'all are ready for this number. 23.6% of all U.S. dollars were created in the last year. Think about that. Nearly 1/4 of the money of the United States was printed in 1 year. You know what this means for rapid inflation? Well, there's some good news for those that hold massive debt, I guess, because rapid inflation means the debt becomes worthless. But this means that your money becomes worthless. Your savings becomes worthless. And therein lies the serious problem here. Retirement accounts, worthless. The people who have saved and are just trying to get by on a budget, I'm sorry. The bad news is here. They are locking everything down. It is getting worse. And now they're telling us that we had the worst day ever with COVID. That's the new breaking news from CNN. The U.S. has reported its most coronavirus deaths in a single day, over 2,800. Therefore, we must lock everything down worse than we have ever seen. In March, when the lockdowns came, most people said, okay, 15 days to slow the spread. How about that? They said it's got to be about a month and a half, 6 weeks. And people were like, okay, yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it. Now it's going on 10 months, 9 months or so. It was March when it went down. This business owner in Michigan said when they printed these trillions of dollars, if they gave him $20,000 and said, use this money to keep your bills, machines, the machine churning, pay your bills, pay your taxes, whatever, and just don't come in. He said, I'd have backed away and said, all right, let's let this virus thing play out. They didn't. They cut everybody a stimulus check. A lot of people were kind of happy with it for the time being. Now what they're doing is just printing money for the millionaires and the billionaires. I know, it's really funny. Seeing this guy, this Portage restaurant owner, he says he feels abandoned by the government. Yeah. Well, you're in Michigan, buddy. You got a Democrat governor. But he goes on to talk about these big corporations and donors getting all this money. And I said, he sounds like Bernie Sanders, at least how Bernie Sanders used to sound until he joined the ranks of the crony establishment Democrats. I want to read you the story about what's going on with these massive protests in Staten Island, because wow, bravo to these guys. But let me just point out, I have the story from Newsweek. Every mayor, governor accused of breaking COVID restrictions and why. This is a story from Newsweek giving us a list of the politicians who violated COVID lockdown. And guess what? They are all Democrats, every single one. And I tell you, this is why I am always ragging on Democrats. Not because I just don't like the left or whatever. I actually am fairly leftist. You know what I tweeted earlier? I said, man, I am really close to screaming, workers of the world unite, watching what they are doing to these people, to the working class in this country. I don't think communism is the answer. Far from it. But I would love to actually see left and right for now just being like, okay, we don't agree on economic policy at all, but we can certainly agree that massive multinational billion-dollar corporations are extracting our wealth and destroying this country. And that has been a persistent narrative since Occupy Wall Street, when left and the right actually agreed on this. But the leftists started taking over and the right got ejected. And then many on the right started making fun of them, saying, oh, they're all commies. I'll tell you what, man, I believe in a mixed economy, right? I like capitalism. I like a free market. And I like the idea of I do actually like government. We had a conversation about it last night in the podcast. I said it provides for the common defense. You just need to weed out the corruption. Limited government for sure. But I think government and mixed economy can work fairly well. The problem is right now, we have a fractured system. Establishment crooked elites have probably at some point said, you know what? There's too much corruption, so the whole system is burning down. Let's just ramp it up, extract all of the value we can, and then buy, I don't know what, gold and Bitcoin, so that when the dollar blows up, you're left holding a worthless empty bag. Just like the big black garbage bag full of Venezuelan dollars I had when I was in Venezuela. No joke. When I went to Venezuela reporting with Vice, me and the Vice reporters, we had a big garbage bag full of Venezuelan money because it was worthless. You would need a massive stack to get like a loaf of bread. For some reason, people still wanted it. At that point, I'd be like, it's more valuable as toilet paper. They are printing money and they're going to print more. There's a massive stimulus package coming in. This is not a solution. It is the opposite of one. Well, outside of the more technical aspects and, the money market stuff, what we're seeing is something tremendously important. Aside from this Michigan restaurant owner who said people need he basically said workers of the world rise up. Or he didn't say that. Okay, he said workers rise up. That's different. Workers of the world unite is literally from the Communist Manifesto. But he was like, regular people, you need to stand up to this. It's tyranny. There's a quote I see floating around. It says tyranny is when something is illegal for the citizenry, but legal for the government. Many people are falsely attributing that to Thomas Jefferson. It's actually from Radley Balco, who I'm pretty sure is like very anti-Trump. It's still a good quote nonetheless. The government can do what they want. The Democrats are violating the COVID lockdown and they won't stop. Since this started, you got Mayor Lori Lightfoot, Gretchen Whitmer, Nancy Pelosi getting their hair done because they have to go on TV. Rules for thee, but not for me. Now you got Newsom going out to eat, twice? You got these Democrat lawmakers going on vacation. One guy apparently was like, everybody stay home while he was in Cabo. Because it is illegal for you, but not for them. And who will stop them? Because right now, in these big cities, you have the oath breakers. The cops who swore an oath to the Constitution in likes of NYPD. Someone told me yesterday that they do swear an oath to the Constitution, but they don't actually care. They're oath breakers. They would go and destroy your rights, and they would shut down your business and your right to assemble while protecting the corrupt. Boy, are we all starting to sound a lot like Antifa these days. Isn't that right? Now, I think those people are nuts because they were actually attacking the working class people and threatening them. And that therein lies the serious problem. If y'all came out and said that these politicians are stealing from the people and are corrupt, and we have no issue with regular working class people, then there we go. We can disagree on economic policy. We can sort that out after we've solved this problem. Here's the news. Hundreds of protesters show up in support of Staten Island bar owner who refused to follow Orange Zone rules. Chopper 2 flew over what looked like a block party in Grant City, but instead was a large protest. Hundreds of people stood shoulder to shoulder with American flags and political signs, demonstrating in front of New York City's sheriff officers who were guarding the door of Mac's public house, which is owned by Keith McAlarney. Kevin Smith was mixed in with the group of supporters, voicing his concerns of why he believes the enforcement is wrong. Quote, "There's people doing heroin and defecating on the subway, and I think that spreads the virus a lot more than some people having a drink on Staten Island. Some chanted and demanded change in an area that is one of the highest COVID-19 infection rates in the city. Some wore face coverings while others did not. When asked for a response to people who say that type of behavior is contributing to why businesses and restaurants have to close, one protester responded, at a certain point, like the people on the left like to say, our body, our choice. People said there were no arrests and no summonses were issued on Wednesday night. As CBS 2's Natalie Duddridge reported earlier, officers were guarding the bar door all day, making sure people did not try to eat and drink inside. We have a First Amendment right to peaceably assemble for any reason we choose. The founding fathers, and those who drafted the Constitution, is actually the anti-federalists who got the Bill of Rights put in, didn't say you can peaceably assemble for the purpose of. They said you have a right to peaceably assemble, period. If I want to peaceably assemble to discuss the latest Pokemon cards, then I'm allowed to do it. That is the supreme law of the land. And that's why I say these cops are oath breakers, because they care more about getting money for themselves while you suffer. That is something truly, truly despicable. Look, I respect police. I absolutely do. And I know many on the left say defund the police. They don't like them. A lot of these mainstream progressive types, I think, are fake. They're influencers. They're the veil, the mask to basically pretend like the left has a voice in politics. What I see is these police officers, these specific ones here, these sheriffs, they're getting paid. You are not. You're suffering. They don't care. They don't care about the Constitution. There are many departments across the country that have said we won't enforce this, and bravo to them. I remember during Occupy Wall Street, there was a really funny story out of Youngstown, Ohio. The police and the fire department were protesting in the Occupy protests together. And so the city realized something. We don't got to give the people what they want. We just got to give the cops what they want. And guess what? They negotiated with the police department. The cops got everything they wanted, and the cops turned around and started arresting everybody else. Those are oath breakers. Those are bad people. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of people that would sell you out in 2 seconds. Do we have a community? Do we recognize the rights of others? In these big cities, for the most part, I don't think so. But Youngstown's not a particularly big city. It's not the smallest place in the world. But that was a truly remarkable story that made me laugh. And now we see these guys. They don't care. You know what's really interesting? When Occupy Wall Street protesters walk up to a cop and scream, whose side are you on? You know what that cop sees? That cop sees some hippy-dippy leftists, and they don't know them, they don't relate to them, and they don't care. So in certain circumstances, I've seen ridiculous leftists screaming stupid things at cops. There's a big difference between, a cop saying we're closing a park and shutting down a business. There are certain circumstances where there are unlawful assemblies, because you have to recognize there's nuance in peaceably assemble. The nuance is, or I should rephrase this. When people begin to not peaceably assemble is when you are not engaging in a First Amendment protected right. So seeing like people running through the streets, knocking things over and smashing things, then blaming the cops, saying, whose side are you on? I'm like, well, not yours. But what do you think those cops are looking at right now? They're looking at the people they probably would go and hang out with later. They're looking at the people who are actually defending them for the longest time. And now the cops are all going to start losing support. I think in the long run, all of this still just benefits the far left. I really do. You're going to get regular people screaming at the cops. Now you're going to see conservatives chanting, whose side are you on? Now that might strike at the heart of many of these officers, because this was the last line of support they had. So I'll tell you what, in small towns, in many suburbs, you got good cops. In my area, the cops are fantastic. They don't do this kind of stuff. They actually help out. They actually are there to help people. In big cities like New York, they ship in outside cops to break the Constitution with a smile on their face. And this is what you get. People are going to start rising up. Check this out. This guy, man, you really got to watch this video from West Michigan. Portage restaurant owner says he feels abandoned by the government. He nails it. He does. I don't know what Bernie Sanders' deal is. You know, he's on the side of Joe Biden, the crony corporatist. Maybe it was on purpose. Maybe Bernie realized, get Biden in, and then the left will revolt against Biden, but so will the Trump supporters. Maybe that was his real goal. Authoritarianism is the problem. If the left and the right, the people who believe in economic populism, allowing more control to the workers and less to the massive, to the elites and the multinational corporations, you can start there. And that's a good thing. Now, where you end up is a different story. On the right, they say free market, live and let live. On the left, they say cooperative control and centralized, authority. That's a problem. I like the idea of left libertarianism. Yeah, it exists. Just hear me out. But it doesn't scale. Okay, it's like I've mentioned this before. It's a bunch of hippies on a farm sharing their watermelon or whatever, right? They grew a plant and they're all sitting around, but it doesn't scale up. At a certain point, you need a simple way to exchange value. Well, as these people in government do whatever they want, violate the law, rules for thee but not for me, while extracting the wealth of the people, that is not what we want, and that is a serious problem. So to the leftists, you have to understand why the Trump supporters aren't going to trust you when you say tax the rich or things like that. Because you're basically saying take money from the elites and give it to the elites. It doesn't change anything. We are looking at right now a lucrative merger between the corporation and the state. It is essentially fascism, at least as Benito Mussolini called it out. Now, it's not right-wing, ultranationalism, so sure, the left wouldn't classify it that way. But right now, it doesn't matter if you tax the rich. They'll probably say, sure, fine, because the rich just locked you down and has said, oh, don't worry, we'll give you a stimulus, but the only place you can spend it is Walmart and Amazon. Give that money right back to the massive multinational billion-dollar corporations. So right now, what we need is the populists on the left and the right to say what we agree on. The elites destroying people's lives, bad thing. The only problem, though, I guess, the divide here is that while I can see regular workers challenging the authoritarian and draconian and fascistic lockdowns, the left agrees the lockdowns. They're tweeting things like, these protesters are going to kill us. No joke. There are people tweeting about these protesters in Staten Island saying they're going to kill us. What were you doing when you were drinking champagne out celebrating Joe Biden's victory? That's the problem. These people say they oppose fascism, but they are celebrating the lucrative merger between corporation and state. And boy, is it coming for us. 23.6% of all U.S. dollars created in the last year. That is something else. Look at this. Look at this massive spike. And they say, don't worry, the Fed says inflation is too low. And the BLS says inflation is only 1.4%. Maybe. We might actually see deflation because there's nothing you can spend money on and there's no way to earn it, so nobody's got it. You know what that means? It means money will be ever more concentrated in the hands of the ultra wealthy, and they'll just have control forever. It's a system. It happens every 10 years if you pay attention. The stock market does really, really well. Then there's a massive sell-off. The wealthy sell really high. The market tanks. Poor people panic and start panic selling, and the rich buy it all back up for pennies on the dollar, expanding their control. I'm not saying it's a grand conspiracy. I'm saying it's the system as the dominoes fall. Now the exploitation is real. But let me wrap this up with a very fine little bow as to why I detest the Democrats. Can you name a Republican that locked down their state and then flaunted the rules? I can point out Kristi Noem, who didn't lock down, and the people threw her a parade. She seems pretty rad. Every mayor, governor accused of breaking COVID restrictions. Austin Mayor Steve Adler. Why? He's a Democrat. Denver Mayor Michael Hancock. Oh, it's surprising. Another Democrat. Gavin Newsom. Yes. Muriel Bowser of D.C. Mayor. San Jose Mayor Sam Liccardo. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Governor Andrew Cuomo. And there you go. And there's a lot more. There are stories about these Democrats who went on vacation. They don't care. They don't care about you. And they're treating this as though it's no big deal. Maybe it is. I don't know. But they're leading by example, I suppose, in which case, if you're going to tell me that we are facing the worst possible lockdown ever, LA County Supervisor dines at restaurant hours after voting to ban outdoor dining. Bravo, good sir. What's that? LA residents are ordered to stay in their homes. Oh. At what point do people explode? The Georgia Senate runoff is coming, and I believe this has bought us some time. If this didn't happen and it was confirmed November 3rd or 7th or whatever, that Republicans would control the Senate or that Democrats would control the Senate, the explosion would have happened. But this might make things worse because maybe people would have gotten their rage out or whatever immediately. Now it's being drawn out. The coronavirus stuff is getting worse and worse as time goes on. The lockdowns are getting worse. The abuse of the lockdowns getting worse and worse. At a certain point, people are going to explode. And I think we're heading in that direction because you're eventually going to see, I wouldn't call them Trump supporters. I mean, they are. But if Trump leaves, on the 20th, and then we go through this GA runoff, Democrats control everything, lock everything down and destroy everyone's lives. It's just going to be people of all types protesting. And you know what's going to happen? The right-wing individuals who are very, very critical of Antifa are not going to say a damn thing when Antifa is protesting at the mayor's house or the governor's house. They're going to be like, yeah, well, at this point, that's the breaking point. I don't know what we need. I don't know. I think we need to end the lockdowns, protect the vulnerable, get the vaccine out, and put an end to this. There's a problem, however. The wealth transfer has already occurred. The money has already been printed. There you go. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And where's Bernie Sanders? Campaigning on behalf of the machine. Where's Rage Against the Machine? Oh, I'm sorry. They are now known as Rage on Behalf of the Machine. Congratulations to the wealthy elites and the new millionaire Bernie Sanders for supporting the system that is destroying everything. Bravo, good sir. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.